Welcome to the She's Just Not That Into You podcast, where we're redefining female experiences and prioritising female perspectives. I'm Rianne.
And I'm Jiyun. We are two friends with global background, sharing our multicultural experiences and discussing everything that sparks our passion.
Every week, we have honest, intimate conversations that we hope will inspire and empower not only each other, but women everywhere.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of She's Just Not That Into You. I'm your host, Jiyun.
And I'm Rianne.
Yeah, today we have a really special story that I think you've never ever heard before. We're gonna talk about a female tattooist experiences about tattooing women and what she's learned about women from her experiences. So how it actually all started is that one day Rian came across this post on Instagram, and it was from this female tattooist who's been working as a tattooist for about like 10 years now. And she's shared some of the lessons she learned from tattooing women. And what she shared on her Instagram, it was just so eye-opening and it was so relevant that we immediately thought, oh my God, we should really invite her to our podcast. And luckily, we are able to work out a time with her, and she's graciously accepted to be on our episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so exciting.
Yeah, so exciting.
Yeah, so without a further ado, let's have her in. Her name is Shannon Read. She's a tattooist based in Darlington, northeast of the UK. Welcome, Shannon, to our podcast. Thank you for joining us today. It's such an honor to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, this is so
Yeah,
exciting.
welcome. Yeah,
Yeah,
so exciting.
welcome.
Yeah, so it's our first time meeting.
Yeah, literally the first time.
It's dead nice for you to reach out. I was overwhelmed with having a chance to speak up about something I really, really like.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we're just so inspired by your stories that you posted on your Instagram and just really wanted to hear more about your stories and your experiences that you want to share more. And it'd be an amazing chance for our listeners to learn more about your experiences as a tattooist.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could talk on this subject all bloody day long. Like, trust me.
Amazing.
Love it.
Amazing.
So
I'm
much.
so ready for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Be careful what you wish
Okay.
for.
Yeah. Great. Okay, let's just get started right away. I think I can start with my first question. So, when did you first realize that you wanted to make a difference for the women you meet through your work and your female clients, or what made you want to do so? We saw on your Instagram, for example, that you've built your space that allows women to slow down or take break, and so on and so forth. So wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So, I don't know what tattooing is like in other countries. I can only really speak for what things are like in the UK. But I used to work in a lot of street level shops, and the kind that the general public can literally just walk in at any time. And these are the kind of shops that are very male led. Like, you'll walk in and there'll be like tattoo beds in rows, all next to each other. You could probably hold hands with the next client over from you.
Yeah.
Not very much privacy, usually painted the color grey, heavy metal playing, that sort of deal. So I've worked in a few tattoo shops like that. And I didn't mind it at the time because that was what I knew and that was what I was used to. And I just thought, oh, well, this is the way it has to be. But as time went on and as I got to know my clients a bit better and I built a solid base for myself, I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this. Because, like, I'm overstimulated and I'm working there. So I can't imagine how my clients must feel. And this was around the time I was getting tattooed a lot more myself. Because prior to that point, I was just going to, see friends, which I have the luxury of doing because I know other people in the industry. I would go see my mates to get tattooed. And obviously, when you know them, it's a bit easier. But I was venturing out further to different shops and, really seeing how I felt getting tattooed as a client rather than an actual tattooer. And I'm shit scared of getting tattooed. Like, I really, really don't fucking like it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get so nervous, and I don't know about, like, do you guys have any tattoos? Like, do you get the same, or?
Yeah, I do have like 14 tattoos.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, so it can be like a bit of a intimidating experience. And I was going
Yeah.
into big shops with lots of people, and even I was intimidated and I knew my stuff. So then I was like, well, I just wish I could build a studio that made someone like me feel comfortable. Like
Mm.
where I could just walk in and not worry about everything else. And
Yeah.
just let the person do their job and then come out happy and not have to be like on edge constantly, because when you get tattooed you're in this like fight or flight mode, aren't you, and you're assessing your surroundings constantly, and if that surrounding is super chaotic you can't calm down. So I wanted to do something that was completely the opposite. And it wasn't a case of I'm going to do this specifically for women at the time. I think I was more doing it for myself as a woman. Like, what would I want from a tattoo shop? So that's what I set out to create. And it sort of developed further from there for being like centric towards women.
Yeah, that's so relevant actually, because listening to your story right now, I just remembered that when I was getting my second or third tattoo, I walked into the studio and then it turns out that there was one or two more clients coming in at the same time as
Mm,
I was, and they didn't inform me of that before I
yeah.
walked into the studio. And then there were other people, and I had never experienced that before. And then at that time, the tattoo that I was getting, I wanted to get it on my in the middle of my back, and
Mm.
then the artist was like, "Okay, just take off your take off your clothes, and then just show me where you want to get it." And then there were other people there, and then they were all looking at me. I was so uncomfortable. Like, tattoo,
Yeah,
like, it's such an intimate experience, but then they wanted
exactly.
to be like in such an
Yeah.
open space. I was like so overwhelmed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it puts you on edge way more. Like,
Yeah.
why is it that we have to be in pain and then
Mm-hmm.
experience this level of like lack of privacy and discomfort in our surrounding as well? How can you possibly settle in to feel pain when you feel on edge anyway to begin with? Like, imagine just walking into a room and going, "Can you just strip off in the middle of the room,
I
please?" Like,
know.
why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so backwards and so
Yeah.
weird.
Oh my
Like,
god, it's so crazy.
but that's exactly how it is, though. Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
just find that
Mm-hmm.
so strange. So I wanted to do it differently for the sake of everyone. Yeah.
So after you've changed the like this is space, like the design of the shop and everything, did you actually start noticing the difference in your clients' reaction or their mood and how they feel about getting tattoos and everything?
Oh, dramatic. Like, it's
Mm.
crazy how wild the difference is. So when I was tattooing in street shops, and I did for probably about 6 or 7 years, it would be a common occurrence every week that clients would just not sit well. And they would be really fidgety, people passing out, people feeling nauseous, people tapping out, and they don't want to carry on with the tattoo anymore. That would be like a weekly occurrence, and I'd be like, what is going
Mm.
on? Like, what is happening? And you don't really notice it at the time, but then when I moved into a private studio where it was just me, super chill, super relaxed, I made all the changes. It's really rare now I get someone that sits badly, like if badly at all.
Mm.
They are just totally different. It's completely wild, and I don't really struggle with clients who can't sit anymore because of that reason. I
Mm.
genuinely think it's because they're less overstimulated, and then they can switch off that fight or flight mode. They can just
Mm.
go, oh, okay, I don't need to, there's no attack here, like we're fine. And then they can
Mm.
just leave their brain elsewhere and relax into
Right.
it. And it's so much
Mm.
easier. And that's actually something I learned from like having a kid, which is wild. But like when you have a kid, you're taught about like hypnobirthing and all this like crazy shit, which is
Yeah.
what they love to feed you. But essentially, they talk about when women experience pain, we're hyper vigilant, aren't we? We're looking for threats in our surroundings, and we're in that fight or flight mode. We're always searching for attack. So in order to get out of that, we need our environment to represent no threat. So it needs to be calm, relaxed, not a lot of, variables to look at. and then our brain can switch off. That's what I created, or well, at least set out to do anyway.
Wow, that's amazing that you've created that space and allowing more women to feel comfortable coming in and getting tattoos.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what we want.
So, having tattooed women for over 10 years now, right?
Mm.
Have you learned anything interesting from these experiences?
So many things. Women are wonderful and gorgeous and vibrant, but I have some things that I have
Yeah.
picked up on that we need to work on, like as a collective, because it's not looking so great. First of all, like women have no idea like how tough they actually are. Like it's
Yeah.
insane. Women often like come in for their appointment and they are nervous, understandably, but they're like, oh, I'm not very good with pain. Like I really struggle. I can't do this. I'm a wimp. Like, oh, be careful with me.
Yeah.
I'm so fragile. I'm such a baby. That's what they're like all the time. I'm like, I know what's coming, but you don't. Like, you have no idea. And especially when they come in for a long session as well, like a really difficult one. And then they lay down on the bed and they realize, everything's going to be okay. And then they just sit like nothing's happening to them. They're just like in their own happy world. And they're like, oh, do you want a snack? Like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, they're fine. But their perception is that they are weak, and that they're far from it. It's just wild. And even afterwards, they're a bit like, oh, sorry, I was a bit of a wimp there, wasn't I? I'm like, are you joking? Like, are you okay? Like, so that is something I've never been able to understand, but they just feel like they can't do it. They've already set themselves up to think that they can't do it. And then anything else after that is a bonus, which is really sad.
Yeah, that's so
But
true.
again, it is true, isn't it? Like with a lot of things.
Like whenever I talk to my female friends who are interested in getting a tattoo, they always say stuff like, oh my god, I really want to get one, but then I'm afraid that it might hurt too much. Like they always say that kind of stuff. But then if I look back and just think about my own experiences, I actually thought about the same thing as well. Like I always imagine like pain is something very like excruciating. But then when I actually got my tattoos, it was more like annoying pain. Like because of all the vibration and everything, it wasn't really that bad actually.
Yeah. A lot of women are like pleasantly surprised. They're like, oh, it's not bad.
It's nothing.
Yeah, but we're dealing with pain on a regular basis as women, like, physically. We're well conditioned to it, but we have no idea that we are, which is strange. Yeah, we've got like no perception of our great strength, if you will.
I think we're just so conditioned to saying nothing about our own pain because, for example, like when it comes to our periods, we get it every month, and when we have like period pain, we are supposed to pretend that it's not there every time we are with our friends, and when we're out, on a date, we can't like say that it's fucking painful in front of other people, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're supposed to go about our lives. Yeah. I'm like, how?
So we're just so used to it.
Yeah, exactly. We're supposed to pretend like that's not something that we're allowed to acknowledge. So we diss it off as like this pain that's imagined, like the pain we're not allowed to talk about. And so any like real world pain that we feel in front of others, we have to go, oh, I can't do that. I can't possibly manage, And that's like literally not true.
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah. And generally, as a society, we're kind of conditioned to not take women's pain seriously either. So I think I once read the statistic that there's apparently 10 times more funding for medical research into men's pleasure than women's pain. So I think it's like for stuff like Viagra and stuff. There's just so much more funding behind researching that than there is into alleviating women's pain because it's just not taken seriously.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. But yeah, I don't think women take their own pain seriously though either. Like you say, we just put it in the bin,
So
for later.
true.
Almost like we imagined it, like, it's all in our heads, it's fine. So yeah, I think we struggle to be viewed in pain as well.
Yeah,
so we can't show it. Like we have to put it away somewhere or do something to it to make it easier.
Yeah. I feel like we are always told not to say things about them unless they are like life-threatening. Like,
Yeah.
even when it's life-threatening, we are always like, oh, is this really life-threatening? Like,
Yeah,
is
all
this
the
really
time.
killing me?
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, is this actually real?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
am I
exactly.
dying or not?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we
Am I
don't even
actually
take it
dying?
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of women's bodies, I guess as a tattooist, you've obviously had a lot of intimate encounters with different women of all different shapes and sizes and their bodies and everything. And have you learnt anything about our society's beauty standards or the pressure that women place on themselves or that society places on women about how they should look or how their body should be or stuff like that?
Oh yeah, definitely in tattooing it's super, super like prevalent. I don't
Mm.
know if you've seen online, but when you're looking for like tattoo inspiration, generally only one body type shows up, and it's like, that thin or curvy white woman, who's posed like so elegantly, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And people think that they definitely have to look like that to get the tattoo that they want to get. So they see that image and they go, well,
Mm.
that only looks good on her because she looks like that. So I gotta look
Mm.
like that, and then I can get that, and then
Mm.
I'm deserving. But in actual fact, I've never I hardly ever, rarely tattoo a person of that body type or that age
Mm.
or that skin color. Like they're just women are so incredibly and beautifully, like rightly so, diverse and wonderful as they are, but the perception of the tattoo industry and the people who are actually getting tattooed is super, super minimal, because sometimes like account and tattooers online will only post a certain body type because it's more attractive, well, conventionally attractive anyway,
Mm.
or getting them more likes, more views. They'll pose women in a certain way, to get the sexy likes, if you will. Like that's what
Yeah.
that's what they're aiming for their content to do well, and that's what's appealing and that's what sells. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it, but it leaves behind all of these gorgeous and beautiful women, the normal women who want these types of tattoos and they want to be able to see it on
Mm.
someone that looks like them. So there's a
Yeah.
definite lack of diversity in the industry, and it's a problem, especially when like tattooers are even designing things. They're always designing it for that one specific body type, when actually we need to be looking at how bodies are, like actually are, like what do our clients actually look like? How can we work with their bodies and what they look like at that time? Because that's the canvas, not this imaginary one that we've dreamt up and created for women.
Right. That's such a powerful observation.
Yeah, that's so true. Because whenever you type in, different tattoo looks and things on Pinterest, they do all look the same, like the models and the photos. And yeah, in that sense, it's maybe similar to clothes as well, and like the
Hmm.
fashion industry in general. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd never really thought about that. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but yeah, not a lot of people notice though, do they? And I just think that's wild if you think
It
about it. For
is.
something
It
that's
is.
made for
Yeah.
bodies,
Yeah.
it's on your body, and then we're only seeing one kind of body.
I
It's
know.
really weird. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, can you move on to your maybe second point? I remember you were talking about the mother especially.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is a biggie. I get this all the time. I love tattooing mothers. They are my favorite type of people to tattoo, because
Mm.
mothers arrive equipped. They are ready. They come with their backpack on. They've got snacks in there, drinks for everybody. They're like, "What do you need? Are you okay?" Like they're constantly assessing everything around them, and they come in and they get all their stuff off and they lay down on the bed, and you can literally just watch them mentally drop everything. And they're like, oh my God, it's so nice to be able to lie down and not be asked for a snack. And, no one's asking me to do anything or go anywhere. And I don't have to, like, it's literally like someone has forced them to do an emergency stop, like in their brain, because all they
Mm.
can focus on is what they're feeling at that time. They're generally just so happy and grateful just to have a bloody break, which is wild if you think about it. Um,
Yeah.
but it's great for me because they sit really great. But like, I really feel for them because being a mom, I've been there, and it's hard. But it just makes me think about the mental strain and like the weight we are carrying constantly. It's so exhausting because we're anticipating everybody's needs, and they are when they come in with their backpack. They're
Mm.
not thinking of themselves. They're thinking of me. They're thinking, oh, maybe she likes chocolate. Maybe,
Yeah.
does she want a coffee? Like, I'm like, this isn't about me. Like, I'm here. I'm at work. You're
Yeah.
paying me. But they do, and they're just like, constantly like, oh, am I in the right position for you? Oh, sorry to be a pain. They're really, really wary of how they're perceived, from the outside. They're almost like hovering above themselves, thinking, what does she think of me? What does she need? What's going on outside? Blah, 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 blah. I wonder what the kids are doing at home. All this other mad stuff that's happening in their brains. And it takes someone to literally pin them down and put a needle in their body for them to go, oh, maybe I should stop now. Like, oh, fuck. Like, I need a break. And it's nice to watch them relax. It's really lovely to give them that. But at the same time, they're going to pick it all back up when they get home. Like, they're
Yeah.
doing the school run. They'll, like, have to go back to work or cook tea or go do the food shop on the way home. Like, that is what they have to do. So, yeah, it's kind of lovely and sad at the same time.
Yeah, it's such a rare experience for women, especially mothers, to have someone else actually do the labor for them, because it's usually them doing all the work for someone else, but it's rarely someone else doing something for women and for
Yeah,
mothers.
exactly.
So we usually really feel sorry for someone else doing the things for us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. They feel so uncomfortable with it as well, because when I come in, I'm basically like, I'm here, I'm going to take care of you, we're going to do this together, you're just going to show up, try your best, and it's fine, we got this. But they're not used to it, and they feel uncomfortable because they're like, oh, like, oh, what can I do to make this easier for you? And I'm like, this ain't your job, like, just lie there, it's fine. But they're not used to it. It's really, and that's so sad.
Have you ever met any moms who are like worried about any potential maybe stigma or like a prejudice that they might get after getting tattoos? Because I feel like in Korea, especially moms, like if you're a mom and have tattoos, people are always really judgmental. Like it somehow like sort of means that you're not a good mom or you're setting a bad example for your kids if you have like tattoos. I mean, it's crazy to think about actually, because like how something as personal as a tattoo can make people question your ability as a parent. I think it's
Mm.
really crazy, and I'm wondering if you actually came across the clients who are worried about that kind of thing.
I'm not sure if the same level of stigma exists here, because they're more widely accepted now. Like, it's harder to run into someone who doesn't have a tattoo.
Yeah,
So it's not
yeah.
so much that, but it's more the guilt they feel for spending any time on themselves, and they're worried about how that guilt is perceived. So they're like, oh, you've been and got a tattoo, but you haven't booked the kids' dentist appointments. What the fuck are you doing? Like,
Like you have time
yeah,
to self
yeah,
care, but you
spending
don't have
time
time
on
for your
you.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's more the worry. And I think
Oh my
that's
god.
why a lot of women, like especially the ones that are in the like 30s and 40s, put it off for such a long time because they feel guilty about spending that time truly on themselves. And then they get to the point where they crack and they're like, I'm going to do something for me now. Like, it's time. And they have this like big motivation to finally do it. And I'm like, yeah, good on you. But like, the reason it's taking you so long is because you're riddled with guilt about doing anything that is just for you alone. So yeah, I think they don't want to seem that way. They don't want to seem selfish or like they're showing off or like flaunting something.
Oh my god, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Which I think easier to link to something that you said as well, that women are always being really sorry about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more about that as well?
Oh God, yeah, because again, it's about women are always assessing the needs of others, and we are trained to be good girls, aren't we? We're
Yeah.
trained not to like inconvenience anyone, get in anybody's way. Otherwise, we're like not good women. When they come into the shop and they want to change something on the design or move the stencil a little bit or have a bit of a break, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm being so awkward. Oh God, I'm sorry. Like this must be a nightmare for you." And I'm like,
Oh
it's my
no.
job. Like, this is your
Yeah.
forever. I'm here just for the day, but this is on you for life. But yeah, they get so worried about that, and they're worried about how they're perceived, and they're obsessed with being this like good, perfect client because that's what's rewarded, especially in tattooing, because they don't they're shamed if they're not, especially online these days when there's a lot of tattoo content, which I fucking hate, where they're almost like taking the piss out of the clients. They're like, oh, don't be this client, or you wouldn't want to be this guy, or what a nightmare to have to move the stencil. Like,
oh my god.
yeah, and they do, and they make that, and so they come in worrying and thinking, "Oh shit, I better not be that guy." Like, I'd hate to be that person, and they think it's a bad thing, and I'm like, it's fucking not. Like, it's on your body forever, so you got to make those choices, and you've got to speak up, and it's your pain, and it's your body, and it's your autonomy at the end of the day. So I'd rather you just said, "Can I have a break, please?" So you do have to remind them, like, constantly. You don't have to feel sorry for this, and you can ask, like, anything during this time. I always say, you're the boss of this situation. Every time they come in, I have my little speech. When I'm ready to go, they go, "You're the boss of this situation. If you need a break or anything, you've got to pipe up and tell me, but I'm always going to check in." And then we go, and then they're fine. But yeah, they do just feel incredibly guilty for asking for anything.
Listening to this, I actually have a really similar experience. Like, about 8 years ago, I was getting a tattoo, and the artist and I were like discussing the design and everything. And I actually ended up getting the one that I wasn't entirely sure about because I felt too overwhelmed to tell him that this isn't something that I want 100%. But then by the time, so much time had already passed. So I didn't really want to be an inconvenience to him. Like, I didn't want to like bother him to change something again. So I ended up getting the one that I wasn't like 100% sure about. And I know that it was gonna stay with me forever because it's gonna be on my body. But still, the pressure and this thought of like bothering him was just kind of overpowering.
Yeah, exactly. Like, doesn't that speak volumes though, that we're just so, we would rather be stuck with that permanent choice than inconvenience someone for 10 minutes. Like, that is how deep it runs, really.
Yeah.
We're just so
Wow.
trained to be the good girl, and rather than speak up and go, "Hey, I don't like that. Like, that's not
Yeah.
what I asked for. That's not what I wanted." And so many women come in and talk of an experience like that. It's more common than you think.
How about male clients that you've met so far, like compared to the women? How do they react or how do they ask for stuff? Like, is there any like significant difference in their like behaviors and responses?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know. You might speak to other tattoo artists who
Yeah.
tattoo more men than me that I might have a different experience, but from my personal perspective, it's dramatically different. Because when they come in, they don't have that mental load going on. Like, they don't. They're not assessing. They're just like, "Oh, I'm here. Like, arrived." Like, they walk in, and they've just literally just had their breakfast, and they're like, "Ah, nothing to do today. My calendar is free."
Even if they've
And
got like 5 kids, but the mom's looking
yeah,
after them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they just waltz in, and almost it's funny because it ends up in a sense of cockiness a little bit.
Yeah.
They're very, very sure of themselves, and they're like, "Oh yeah," they don't even think about it. Like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna hurt. Be weak." But then when you lay them down, men often are taken back by how much it actually hurts because they're not thinking about, what if I show myself up, or what if I want to make an ass of myself, or what if I need this and what if I need that. They're not thinking about that, so they're a bit like, oh god, this is actually really, really painful, and generally struggle a bit more. And I think they struggle to. Women are very good at hiding when they're in pain.
Yeah.
That they will sit like a rock, and then after the appointment, they'll go, "Well, that was probably the most pain I've been in my life." And I'm like, "Well, you wouldn't have known because you didn't blink the whole time." Whereas men are very in their bodies, are very physical, and they will move and twitch and really feel it in their bodies, whereas women feel it, in their mind. So yeah, I would say that was probably the most different. I think their pain thresholds are definitely different. Well, you could argue that they're not. I think women just deal with it differently because we are used to it, and we're used to, putting our pain in the bin elsewhere, whereas men aren't really used to doing that. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the main difference.
And relatively, I think they really come in really unprepared. Like, it's
Hmm.
almost like they come in and like look at you and like, okay, what should I do now? Like,
They did not bring the backpack. And I think men as well, I noticed, are more curious than women are because women's heads are so full. They're just so busy all the time. So that when they get to do relax, all they do is shut off. Whereas men, like, are so used to having the headspace to be open to the world and curious. So they're a bit like, what's that? What does that do? What do you have that for? Whereas women don't really ask those questions because they don't have any room or energy for curiosity left. They're just like, they go into emergency shutdown. Whereas men don't. They're like, what's going on? Which again speaks volumes.
yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. I feel like the fact that men have more kind of mental bandwidth to be curious probably I feel like that probably goes into so many other areas of life as well. And women who are so stressed and overwhelmed all the time just probably don't have as much energy to spend progressing their careers and stuff like that as well. Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. Yeah,
I always see this like moment with women that come and see me because I tattoo a few like younger women like in their 20s. But my favorite type of woman to tattoo is a woman like they reach maybe like 35, 40, and they go, oh shit, I haven't done anything for myself my whole life. Like
oh my god.
because they've never had time to think about it. And then that's usually the time they start coming and getting tattoos and getting other piercings. But they call it like a midlife crisis. And I'm like, it's not. It's like a self-discovery because they've been, giving parts of themselves away constantly, bit by bit, their whole life because that's what they're taught to do. And then they have a moment where they go, what do I even like? What do I enjoy? They've never been able to ask themselves those questions, whereas men are automatically they look inside themselves all the time and they go, well, I'm going to pick up that hobby because I can, and I'll go do this because that's life and that's what I do. Whereas women don't really have that, and when they get to realize that, it's magical, but isn't it sad that it's taken them that long?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you have an experiences of having male clients coming in to cover parts of their body. Is it as common? I guess it's not as common, obviously.
No. Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I've never seen it happen. Yet to seeing it happen, which definitely speaks volumes. But women are, if you look online and you search for male stomach tattoo, you'll see a wide range of like body types there. But if you type the same for women, it's pretty much mostly the same. So women think they have to fit into that category, whereas men, it's like, it's just a bit of skin, get it done, it's fine. Whereas women are just looking at themselves thinking, oh God, I've got to have like, not only can I not have it there until I look like that, and I need to, get a flat stomach before I can have that, or I need to hide this bit so that it'll look like that picture, when actually it's not the case at all. It's all just skin, but men just don't see it that way at all.
Interesting. And I was also wondering, when women came in to maybe cover their parts of some parts of their body, is there any specific parts of the body that women are specifically more concerned about, or is it just all different based on who's coming in?
Mostly, I'd say legs. Women hate the legs.
Oh,
Like,
really? That's
Really?
so
oh,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
women, yeah, like women hate their
Really?
thighs,
Mm.
mostly, and a lot of them will tell me, oh, I'd never get my legs out in the summer. Like, I won't dare wear shorts. I will suffer all summer long in like jeans or a long skirt or something. But
Mm.
then when they get the tattoo, they're like, oh, I can wear shorts now. And I'm like, you could before, babe. Like, what happened? Like, yeah, like you didn't have to sweat for that long. But yeah, like women don't like the legs. Stomach is an obvious one. They're very, I think because again, these tiny stomachs are the standard for us. So when they have even a little bit of a, something, they're super self-conscious. Like I've seen the smallest women come in to get tattooed by me and they're like, oh, don't get my stomach in the photo. Oh my God, like I'm so ashamed. And then there's me like size 22 rocking off. I'm like, babe, you need to stop. It's crazy.
Oh my
But
god.
yeah, so generally legs, and maybe upper arms as well.
Upper
But
arms.
yeah. Yeah, because they're like, oh, if it jiggles, it's embarrassing, isn't it? And I'm like, no, it's really not.
So if they don't like their legs, where do they get their tattoos on their legs? Like the upper thighs or like back of their thighs, or where do they usually get the tattoos?
But see, the funny thing is, a lot of women do get their legs tattooed. It's because they don't like them. So they're doing it to conceal or feel better about that part of their body. So they'll get it, and then that will give them permission to hate it less. And I find that that's super common because they just need something to get them to love it, or just even tolerate it ever so slightly to the point where they can wear shorts outside, which is wild.
Is it kind of maybe the equivalent of if you have like, I don't know, like a corner of your house that you don't like as much and you hang a pretty painting up there and it makes you feel a bit better about it?
Yeah, exactly. Put some curtains up. Yeah. It's the same.
Oh, so do you think tattoos can positively influence a woman's life? Do you have any like experiences or any perspectives that have kind of changed the way you think about that or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say so. It's probably the best thing a woman can do for themselves. I get that not everybody likes them and that's fine, but when a woman decides that they finally want one, especially after they've left it or put it off for such a long time, it's a final choice to say, I'm going to do this for me now, because it involves solely themselves, and it involves their own acknowledging their own autonomy and power over their own body to make that choice. And it doesn't necessarily serve a function either, like it doesn't make you faster or more intelligent or whatever. It is literally just something that is beautiful and fun and enjoyable. So they have to make that choice for themselves. And I think once they realize they can, that can improve their life massively, because then they realize they have choices and they have autonomy and they can go out into the world thinking more that way. And then obviously there's a visual perspective as well. If they're not used to looking in the mirror and seeing something beautiful, maybe artwork would help with that and help them celebrate what they are. They're less likely to feel so bad about themselves. But yeah, I think it can be life-changing and liberating for a lot of women.
Speaking of which, are there any female clients or experiences as a tattooist that have a lasting impression on you? The memorable experiences and memorable female clients.
I mean, it's hard to pinpoint just one because it's such a common occurrence, but literally just yesterday I had one of those clients that like took me back, because she'd come in, she was a mum, I could tell instantly because she had this big old backpack on. I'm like, you're a mum, I know you. And she puts it down on the chair, she's like, I've come prepared. I'm like, I know you have, I can tell. And then she like is literally full to the brim of snacks, and she's getting this tattoo. She had one like 15 years ago, and she had a bad experience and she didn't really like it, and it's not her favorite. So this is her first proper tattoo, and she was describing to me how she'd been serving other people for such a long time. She's got a big busy family and a hectic life, and she was a university student, a lot going on, and she was just giving parts of herself away like constantly. And she said, last year I've made a conscious decision to do something for myself for a change. I'm going to look into myself and think, what do I like? And then she was like, I'm going to get my tattoo, like I'm going to go and do it. And despite what people around her were going to think. But even still, when she came in with her backpack on, she was just still doing that, constantly assessing the needs of other people. She was asking me how I was, or if, she gave me a whole like selection box of chocolate that, she was like, oh, I don't even want it. Just have it. Just have it. And even when she was like laid on the table, she was like, is this okay for you? Oh God, sorry, I think I moved an inch without asking you first. Is this okay? And I'm like, you need to like relax. Like, you need to calm, like switch this brain off, because this is not your job. Like you need to go just have a nap, like for the love of God. Because she had a 5-year-old at home, she's shattered mentally. And she said to me, she was like, it's just so nice not to be asked for something. Like, and I was like, yeah, I know. Like, I know how you're feeling right now. And I see it happen. That script plays out all of the time. It's super, super common. So yeah, every time I have a client like that, I'm like, I feel good because I know I'm doing something good for someone. It's not just a tattoo. They need that experience. They need someone to come in and go, I'm going to take care of you. I got this. You can just not, and not worry about anything for like 6 hours. And that is such a liberating feeling for a lot of women.
And it must be really fulfilling to you as well, like giving tattoos for those women who need those kind of self-care and who come in with the kind of mindset and then leaving a little changed afterwards.
Yeah, definitely, because you can watch you can watch them change throughout the
Yeah.
appointment. They come in and they're like looking after everybody and they're carrying so much, and then you watch them drop it and leave it alone for a bit,
Yeah.
and you can see their face relax, like probably for the first time in like months.
Right.
And then they're chuffed to bits because they realize they've done something difficult. They've done that thing. They've
Yeah.
taken control of something, even if it's just for a little while, and they've finally done that thing for themselves. And it's a nice thing to be able to make that happen for women, because we fucking deserve it. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, we need
exactly.
that. Yeah, so yeah, it's super lovely.
So, as a busy working mom yourself, with a young kid, right? Do you have any, I don't know, like if we have anyone listening to our podcast who is a mum who is overwhelmed, do you have any kind of tips and tricks that you've learned yourself in your working life to kind of get some space for yourself and not get too overwhelmed and stressed when things get really busy?
I would say the thing I've had to learn is I think that when we're trained to take everything on, aren't we? We're trained to be the caregiver. And I think we just have to accept that we have our limits. So we have to speak up. We have to say, you can do the dishwasher. You handle this. I need this. I need an hour to myself. I need a day. I need time. I just need, 10 minutes when no one talks to me. If we have to get used to saying I need, rather than, oh, would it possibly okay if I, meet my friends for dinner for like an hour? I promise I'll be back in time. Like, no, we have to go, I need this time, like for my sanity and for me to feel good in myself. Like, we have to not be afraid to ask. And it goes the same for being in a tattoo setting as well. We have to not be afraid to ask for what we need. And we have to listen to our intuition, that voice that we're always tuning out for the sake of everybody else. We have to learn to listen to it, because it will tell you and scream at you until the emergency lights come on and you're burnt out and you can't do anything else. So yeah, it's just learning to use that voice, I think, is super important.
Super empowering. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And listening to all of your experiences with your female client, I was wondering, are there any differences have you noticed in your experiences tattooing women versus men? I know not a lot of, like 90% of your clients are female, but have you noticed that kind of difference? Not necessarily like how they are different, but how your experiences with them are different. Like, I know you've been having all sorts of different kinds of emotions and feelings when you have those female clients, right? But is it the same with male clients, or like do you have different kinds of thoughts in your mind when you're with them, or how are they different, like how you spend your time with them, or how your experiences are in general?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a difference. And with women, you're able to form a bit of like I call it like a sacred connection, because
Yeah.
women love to connect to other women,
Yeah.
don't we? And we're like,
Yeah.
oh God, my period is ruining my life. And,
Yeah.
we can really pour out to each other. And it's a really beautiful thing to do. Whereas men, I can't really connect on the same. I can connect to an extent if you can find a common ground good enough, but you don't get that same like power with women, because we have this like shared struggle and understanding, whereas with men I don't really have that. I don't get me wrong, the men I do tattoo are gorgeous and lovely and vibrant, and I'm super like lucky to have them, but I don't think I will ever get that same connection I have with a female client, because it's just like we understand each other on such a level that you have to be a woman to get that, I think.
I know that a lot of women out there who are interested in getting tattoos, but they really don't have the right set of information about tattoos. So are there any like misconceptions or prejudice about tattoos that you want to address or that you want to challenge? Or is there any information do you want to share, especially to women who are interested in getting one for the first time?
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's this perception that tattoo shops and tattoos are like a masculine thing and a masculine box that women have squeezed themselves into, when actually I want to relabel tattoos as a feminine thing, because more women are getting tattooed than ever before.
Right.
And like, if my clientele is like 90% women, and a lot of people I know tattoo 90% women, so many women are getting tattooed, and there's so many like gorgeously feminine styles out there, yet a lot of tattoo shops are geared towards men. And that doesn't make sense. So I would say to them that it is for you, and it is yours if you want it to be, and it's worth taking your time to do the research and look for an artist who is right for you, that is going to serve you in the right way, because they are out there, I promise. There's been a huge resurgence in like private tattoo shops at the moment. A lot of people are realizing that they can't offer a good experience from a street level shop, so they take it upstairs, and make a private studio off the street. They are out there, they're harder to find, but it's worth just looking around just that little bit longer and make sure that that person's right for you. Don't just look at the art, look at who they are as a person, how they're putting themselves across, because that is important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that a lot of tattoo shops are geared towards men, because out of all my friends I know who have tattoos, I actually don't have that many male friends who have tattoos, but I have a lot of female friends who do. So,
yeah, like a lot less men are getting tattoos these days, I think. That's how it feels. No one's doing that. No one's doing those numbers. No one's collecting that data. I can only really speak for how it feels and how it's looked for me over these 10 years.
Right.
But generally, more and more and more women are the ones getting tattooed, and less men. So why is it that they're masculine spaces still? They need to be the most, feminine spaces. Well, not the most feminine, but like, a bit less boys' club would be nice,
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, Shannon, lastly, I just wanted to ask, is there anything else you wanted to share with our listeners out there who are interested in getting a tattoo but haven't really had a chance to get one because they're afraid or because they didn't have a chance to? What are the things that you want to share with them?
The one thing I would say is to women out there that are thinking about getting a new tattoo is just look within yourself for a change and just do it, because I've suddenly come to realize myself that we only have one life. And I know it's very cheesy and it's been commercialized or whatever, but we really do truly only have this one life, and life is too bloody short to be giving parts of ourselves away constantly. So I would just encourage women out there to just take a moment and think, what do I like? What do I want? How do I want to feel? And what do I want for my life? And if getting tattoos is on your agenda, make it happen. Go and do it. And don't be afraid to take up that space in the room and just go for it.
Thank you so much for listening to our latest episode, and if you like that, please share with a friend.
We'd also really appreciate if you could rate and review our podcast. And please get in touch if you have any feedback.
We'll be back again with another episode next week.